And they are done! The pants, the dress, the jacket, and even a bonus tank top, which I will tell you about later. If you are a returning viewer, then you know why I'm excited. And if you are new here and are wondering, what is this woman going on about? Hello, my name is Paula Jean. June Made is my channel where I share about my sewing and creative endeavors. And this is episode 3 of my journey toward making beautiful wearable garments out of my stack of coordinating green fabrics. If you missed those first 2 episodes, I will leave them linked down below. You can watch them at your leisure. In the meantime, I am going to pick up where I left off in the last video, which had me waiting on a new dryer so that I could throw the comfy sweatpants into the wash and shrink up the elastic. We got the dryer, it works great, and everything that I wanted to happen did happen. I just did a straight hem on the pants. I know in the plans video, originally I was planning on maybe incorporating some of the suede scuba into the sweatpants, but after everything that happened with them, I just decided to keep it simple, and I think that was the right choice. I really like them. Also, at the end of the last video, I believe I had cut out the dress, which is the SOFIA Sweetheart dress by Stay Stitch Pattern Company, and I had pin basted the skirt together. So that all worked great, and from there I went ahead and put the bodice together. I didn't do any filming of that process because Stay Stitch Pattern Company has a video on their YouTube channel, which I will link below, that goes through the burrito method, which is what I use to clean finish the neck and the armholes. And if you are a new or non-sewist and you're like, burrito sounds delicious, what does it have to do with a dress? It is a way of attaching a lining to a sleeveless bodice in a way that makes the neckline and the armholes very nicely finished. So I put together the bodice according to those instructions, and then for the skirt part, instead of serging the side seams, I decided to stitch them just with a small zigzag stitch as a regular seam, and then I did just a narrow serged finish on the edges of the seam allowance. And I did that because I really wanted to make sure those seams were going to lie flat. So I pressed them open using my sleeve ham, and then on the slits, I turned those over, press them really, really well, and I used Wonder Tape just to make sure that those were gonna be stabilized while I sewed them. And then using a walking foot on my regular sewing machine, I went ahead and used a straight stitch to stitch those down. After that, I pin basted the skirt and the bodice together because I really wanted to make sure the fit was right. And I was thrilled with how it looked. I didn't have to change a thing. Then I undid all the pin basting and attached the bodice to the skirt part for real, just attaching the outer main fabrics together. I left the lining free because in the last video I mentioned that instead of the shorter lining piece of the pattern, I just cut out another full length version of the bodice to have a full bodice lining. And part of the reason I did that is because I had this idea in my head that I thought it was possible to maybe clean finish the inside of that as well. If I were making a dress out of a woven fabric, then that's something that I would just baste by hand. Once everything was all finished and turned out, I would just baste it along the waist seam and that would be fine. I didn't have a lot of confidence in doing that with knit fabrics. I thought maybe it would pull weird, so I really wanted to find a way to try to do that on the sewing machine in some kind of, you know, like magical way like you do when you attach a lining to a jacket. So I left a hole in one of the side seams of the bodice lining, thinking that I could somehow pull things through and finagle it and find a way to put that under the sewing machine. I had a little bit of trouble figuring that out, so I thought, well, maybe the burrito method could kind of work for this. If I just like shoved the skirt inside and pulled the bodice and the bodice lining up around. And at this point, it's probably good to take a little trip back in time and show you what happened. All right, y'all. This is the big burrito. So this is the bodice lining. This is the bodice outer fabric, and then sandwiched in between here is the skirt part, which has already been sewn to the bodice. And then this opening right here is where I'm hoping to pull everything through, and then I'll slip stitch that closed by hand if this all works out. And if it doesn't, then I may just have to have myself a little cry. Okay, moment of truth. Here we go. There's more. Okay. Well, that didn't work, and I'm super disappointed. I might look at a couple of videos and see if I can figure out what happened, but in the meantime, I'm gonna have to unpick what I did and maybe just follow the regular instructions, and it'll still look nice, and it's just the inside, so I shouldn't be caring so much, but I really thought I was gonna have like a eureka moment, and it's just disappointing when that doesn't happen. But that's fine. It's fine. It's still gonna be a nice dress. I got it to work. I don't know what happened, but something kind of made sense as I was unpicking everything. I did end up doing it a different way that I don't know if I can explain. I did end up using the hole that I had left in the side of the lining and did the front and the back in two separate passes and kind of pulled each through. I just needed to work it out for myself off camera, and this is why I'm not a sewing teacher, because I can't always explain things in a way that people would get. I mean, it would have been fine either way, but I am really glad I figured out a way to make this work, because I did want this finishing to be kind of nice and clean inside. And so now I can go in, and I'm just gonna go in through that hole again and trim back some of the seam allowances, grade them like I did on the pants, and then I can slip stitch that hole closed and then hem the dress, and then this is all ready to go. Super happy. So all's well that ends well with the bodice lining of the dress. From there, I pressed up the hem using a cool little heat-resistant card that my brother got me for Christmas. And then I decided to do a different kind of hem on this. Now, I just want to pause right here and do a little public sewing announcement advocating for what I think is the unsung hero of knit hem finishes, and that is the stretch blind hem. Not every machine is going to have it, but my heavy-duty Janome machine, which is a mechanical machine, doesn't have a lot of stitches. It has it. Also, my old Brother CSI 6000, it has that stitch. All it is a blind hem, but instead of the in-between stitches that are not catching the upper fabric being straight, they are a zigzag. So it just means that that whole thing will be pliable and stretchable after, and I just think it's a beautiful finish, especially for hems and sleeves of garments that maybe you want to have the option to wear them in a more dressy way. I find it to be a little bit of a cleaner finish than a twin needle or a zigzag hem. So if you don't have a cover stitch machine and have other options, this is one to maybe look on your machine and see if you have it, because I think it's really lovely and I hear nobody talking about it. So I just want to tell you about it here. It was the perfect way to finish such a beautiful dress. So with the dress all finished, I could finally start on the jacket, and I went ahead and made myself a muslin. I made it out of woven fabric just to kind of see if the proportions and the initial adjustments that I made were going to be enough, and I'm really glad that I did that. So at first I had lengthened the bodice by 1.5 inches, and I ended up in the end adding another inch to that. I also found that the curve of the underarm needed to be a little bit closer to my body. So in addition to the initial 1/2 inch that I took off of the underarm of the front and back bodice, I took off another 1/2 inch and I moved that curve a little bit, just using some straight edge and curved edge measuring tools that I have. Once I did those adjustments to the front and back bodice, I also adjusted the cuff. I was finally able to cut out the fabric, and then I constructed the jacket according to the instructions. There is also a sew along video to this pattern, which Marcia has done over on the Know Me Patterns YouTube channel. I will also link that down below. The only additional step that I did was, in order to kind of highlight the suede look of the fabric, I went ahead and top stitched all of the seams down, and then I trimmed away the seam allowances on the inside just to make it a little bit neater. For the zipper, I found a close enough match of a green zipper in my stash, but it was too long, so I went ahead and shortened it. To do this, I pinned the zipper to the front opening of the jacket, and I marked where it met the neckline and also about 1/2 inch down to make sure I had enough room for a seam allowance. I then used a pair of zipper puller pliers to pull off the zipper stops and then cut down the zipper so it was a more manageable length, and use the same tool to pull off a bunch of the teeth so that I could work with it. I then put the zipper stops back on and secured them by using the pliers yet again. I also installed the zipper a little bit differently than the instructions called for. I installed it more like an invisible zipper, where I flipped it down with the teeth away from the opening and stitched that with a zipper foot. I did the same thing to the other side, making sure those yoke seams and everything were all gonna line up properly. And luckily that worked out. This might be one of the best zippers like this I have ever installed. So I'm gonna take that as a win. Another thing I did differently was that because I wasn't doubling up the ribbing, I originally thought I was going to just bind the edge of it because the ribbing I was using was so substantial, but I really am in love apparently with this athletic stretch mesh from Fabric Fairy and thought, well, it's on the other 2 garments, so why don't I use it here? So I actually used it for the back of the waistband ribbing and the cuff ribbing, and it's so soft against my skin and it's really lightweight, so it doesn't add a whole lot of extra bulk, and I'm really, really happy with it. I think I'm gonna get so much wear out of this jacket because it fits so well. I love how blousy it is, but then it's fitted at the waist because of the ribbing, and it's so lightweight. Like, it looks much heavier than it is. And because it's actually a scuba fabric, I washed and dried this fabric before working with it, and it went through the wash great. So that means if it's raining a bit, I don't have to worry about it getting wet the way that I would have to worry about an actual suede leather jacket. So I'm so happy with this. I love it. I know I say that about a lot of things, but well, it's true. And the last piece of the puzzle was this impromptu little tank top that came from the leftover fleece from making the comfy sweatpants. This is the ZOEY Tank and Dress by True Bias. Really great little pattern. I really like how versatile this is. Obviously you can wear it on its own. I really like how it pairs with the comfy sweatpants and makes kind of a little faux jumpsuit, but also it's great to wear as a little sweater vest over something else. I'm wearing it with this. You could wear it over a t-shirt. It's really fun. So I guess that is a wrap on the green fabric journey. It is off of my shelf. It is sewn up into wonderful garments that I'm actually really thrilled to have in my wardrobe, and a number of them I will be able to wear for many seasons, either on their own or as layering pieces. So yeah, that's, I'm gonna call this a success. Thank you so much for watching this video and joining me on this green fabric journey. If you are enjoying this content, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, or giving a thumbs up, or letting me know in the comments. In the meantime, I hope you're having a beautiful day, a beautiful week, and I will see you next time.